Hello, I'm State Senator Eileen Donahue. Welcome to this episode of Beacon Hill Buzz. Through this program, we are trying to talk to people in my district and throughout the Commonwealth about issues that impact them and of interest. And today we're very fortunate to be joined by the chairman of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, Mr. Stephen Crosby. We are very fortunate because not only is this an important topic that affects all of us, but also because of the wealth of experience and knowledge that Chairman Crosby brings us. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, I would like to take a moment just to talk about some of your background and accomplishments for the audience at home. You know, Mr. Crosby has 45 years of experience in policymaking, entrepreneurship, nonprofits, and academics. Prior to serving as the chair of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, Mr. Crosby served as the founding dean of the John W. McCormick Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies at UMass Boston. He was the Secretary of Administration and Finance to Governor Paul Cellucci and Governor Jane M. Swift from 2000 to 2002. And he was responsible for the development, legislative approval, and implementation of the governor's then $23 billion annual budget and a $2 to $3 billion capital budget. He supervised 22 agencies with 3,000 employees, and in 2002 he served as the Chief of Staff to Governor Jane Swift. In 25 years of work in the private sector, Mr. Crosby was the founder and publisher of CCI Crosby Publishing in Boston. In other business endeavors, he has served as chairman and CEO of technology and publishing companies. His career also includes work as a campaign manager and senior advisor for local and national candidates and elected representatives, and as a frequent commentator in local and national media. We'll be talking with Chairman Crosby about gaming in Massachusetts, including new casinos, online gaming, daily fantasy sports, the bright and glittery world of eSports, what's happening right now in Massachusetts with gaming, and what's in store for Massachusetts in the very near future. So again, Mr. Chairman, thank you for joining me here today.
My pleasure. I must be old to have done all that.
You've done a lot. That's a very impressive resume. We're very fortunate to have you chairing the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. You know, I thought it might be a good idea to begin with your overview of, you know, the Gaming Commission, what's been going on, and economic opportunities that you see related to gaming right now throughout the state. So the floor is yours, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, just to quickly lay of the land, you know this, but some of your viewers may not. The law was passed in 2011, a law that came out of your committee in the legislature, authorizing up to 3 resort destination casinos, big casinos, in 3 different regions across the country, across the state, and 1 slots parlor that could be anywhere in the state. We've licensed and started operations of the slots parlor called Plainridge Park Casino in Plainville, Mass. We have licensed MGM Resorts to do a big $1 billion destination resort casino in Springfield, and we've licensed Wynn Resorts to do a $2.4 billion project right on the Mystic River across from Charlestown and Somerville in the town of Everett. Those 2 projects are well underway. MGM will open in September of next year. Wynn will open the following spring, maybe May or June. And if you drive by either of their sites, it's an incredible amount of stuff going on. So the initial economic impacts are simply in the construction. There's a total of almost $3.5 billion between the 3 facilities, over $3.5 billion that's being invested in construction. That's more than the mayor of Boston was talking about when we were talking about doing the Olympics. It's a huge investment. It's generated 8,000 construction jobs. It's generated millions and millions of dollars of work for businesses in Massachusetts, often diverse businesses, minority-owned business, women-owned and veterans-owned businesses. So the economic impacts have already begun to lift. To start, we're launching in another week or so a campaign triggered by the demand for personnel at the construction sites of the casinos to get women in the construction force. Women don't think about going into the trades, the construction trades, but they can in many cases, and we're going to be promoting that very aggressively over the course of the next few months. So those economic benefits are already in the pipeline and happening. The big opportunities will come when these casinos open, and each of them was designed, as you know, because you were one of the key people behind the bill, was designed to create broad-based economic development. Sometimes you get a casino, and you've all seen them, that's basically a box sitting somewhere, often rural, rarely urban, and no relationship to the rest of the community.
Kind of a standalone.
A standalone box, no windows, big parking lot around it. And you go in and you stay in there, you do your business in there, you eat in there, you shop in there, then you leave. No ancillary impact on the rest of the region of the city at all. We had a mandate from the legislature, from you and others, to have a much broader impact than that. The casino in Springfield, for example, not only has a casino and restaurants and a hotel and retail stores, which is relatively commonplace, it also has a bowling alley, a luxury movie theater, an outdoor public market, a skating rink, and 54 units of market rate housing.
And this is right in downtown Springfield.
Right smack in the heart of Springfield.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly bold attempt to use a casino to regenerate a whole community and a whole region. And knock on wood, so far it looks like that might be happening. Similarly with Wynn. Everett has been a community without any good luck for a long, long time. The Monsanto chemical plant, many of your viewers will know, was so desperately polluted that nothing could go there and nobody could afford to fix it. So it's been abandoned for 50 years or something like that. Wynn came in, spent $30 million, $30 or $40 million to clean up the site, including shipping, if you can believe it, 660,000 tons of soil out of the site because it was so polluted, and send it to other places where it could be accepted across the country. So, and Wynn is buying up property all around there. Other people are beginning to buy up property because it looks like it may really be a shot in the arm that Everett has needed. So we have our fingers crossed that we will be able to do what the legislature wanted us to do, which is use these as broad-based economic development tools.
And that was something, as you mentioned, was hoped for in the detailed legislation. But projects like that would not get done, as you point out, but for this
Right.
unique private investment, that especially when we're talking about cleaning up sites that heretofore have been just
both downtown
terrible.
Springfield and Monsanto chemical plant in
and
Everett.
wouldn't be used without that.
Right.
One of the things that is of most importance, I think, anywhere in the state, and that has to do with opportunities, economic opportunities, job opportunities, and I'm curious and this is more related to the Wynn Casino, but do you see, beyond the construction jobs that are happening right now as we speak, an impact of job opportunities, perhaps even in the greater Lowell community, because of casino-related jobs?
I would say absolutely yes, in two respects. First of all, the Wynn Resort will have, I think it's 4,000 permanent employees, full-time employees. They are all union jobs. They're good jobs. They all have benefits. They all have an opportunity for upward mobility. So you may have to start as a low-level security person, but people tend to stay at Wynn casinos, all casinos, but particularly Wynn casinos, which are very well run. So there's an upward mobility, there's benefits, there's union pay. 4,000 people are going to come principally from the nearby area because that's part of the commitment that Wynn made. But when people take jobs to move to the casino, that'll be opening up jobs elsewhere. And particularly in the tourism-related and the food and beverage-related and the hotel-related areas, there will be a lot of people that will be leaving other jobs that aren't as good, that going to the Wynn Casino, creating other jobs for people further away. So I think people from the Lowell area will be able to have opportunities as a result of this.
I think the other fact that maybe the viewers aren't really aware of, because these casinos are being built now. We think of many times, because this is a brand new industry for all of us here in Massachusetts, we think of casinos being essentially, gaming tables and slot machines and so forth. But these casinos are going to be different. Can you tell us a little bit about what these casinos are going to offer in addition to the gambling aspect?
Well, I mentioned in Springfield. Springfield is the really dramatic case. The Everett Casino, and I mentioned they have a movie theater, they have a bowling alley, they have an outdoor market, they have housing. It's incredible. It's a mixed-use development. It's not a casino development. It's a mixed-use development in the heart of Springfield. The Wynn Casino will have a lot of the more traditional things. They're going to have a 26 or 7-story hotel that will be a 5-star, highly luxurious hotel. They will have convention space. They are fixing the land going out to the Mystic River. They're cleaning up the Mystic River waterfront so you can have outdoor events right out on the Mystic River, unheard of in the past. They have, I think, something like 20 restaurants. And the casino will be isolated. If you want to go to the casino, which many people will, you can do it. But if you just come in the hotel with your family, your kids, and you don't want to gamble, you want to do other stuff. You want to go to the restaurants, you want to stay in the hotel, you want to experience this amazing culture that Wynn puts into his casinos. He's going to have a $25 million statue of Popeye in the middle of the casino from artist Jeffrey Koons that he bought. If a family that doesn't want to gamble or doesn't want to expose their kids to gambling wants to come into the casino and experience all this other stuff, you can do it. In Las Vegas, typically when you walk into a casino, you can't get to any place else. You can't get to the hotel, you can't get to the restaurants without walking through the slots parlors.
Right. And there'll be
Wynn didn't want that.
And shows.
There'll be shows, there'll be convention services, and on. So it's going to be, as well as I said, he's buying up other properties because he wants this to become a real entertainment center built around their casino.
Well, it sounds exciting, and we're looking forward to next year and to see what and the year after to see these
we are
things
too.
Opening their doors.
And we don't count our chickens before they hatch, but we're optimistic right now that we're really going to be able to have a positive economic impact, as you all wanted us to have.
Speaking of economic impact, one of the things that came out of the Economic Development Bill, or the Economic Development Committee in the Jobs Bill last year, was establishing a gaming commission. Strike that. That's you.
Right.
The online gaming commission to look at that, because we hear about online. Fantasy sports being one that kind of came on the scene a couple of years ago with a lot of fanfare, and so a commission was established in that jobs bill to take a look at a number of things, not just fantasy sports, but online gaming and even eSports. And you were a commissioner on that. We were very lucky to have you and your expertise on that commission. So I'm just curious, DraftKings and the local company was one that got a lot of attention, but questions regarding fantasy sports or online gaming. Tell us your views as far as what, if any, impact you think they might have on casinos, or do you look at them as separate and apart?
Right. Nobody knows for sure what the relationships will be, which means I think we have to be cautious. You can't have people come in like Wynn spending $2.5 billion, MGM spending $1 billion, and then radically change the competitive environment around them as they're trying to get a return on their investment. So as we discussed on the commission, I think we need to keep an eye out that whatever things we do legalize in online gaming, that we make sure the casinos have a seat at the table. So if they're going to be cannibalized by a new industry, they can be cannibalized, they can be a part of that new industry that's going to do the cannibalizing. But as you know, basically online gaming in Massachusetts is illegal, with the exception of DraftKings, of DFS, Daily Fantasy Sports, which is legal now for a short period of time, for two or 3 years, according to the legislation that you referred to. everything else, online poker, betting on eSports, sports betting, every other kind of online casino gambling, that's all illegal in Massachusetts, although there's a lot of people that do it. There are a lot of offshore sites and people do it. The opinion of the Gaming Commission is basically that this is going to happen. We have so much gambling already. We have, as you know, we have more gambling on the lottery in Massachusetts per person, per capita, than anywhere else in the United States. $723 per year per man, woman, and child is bet on our lottery. So what's to worry about a little bit more is online betting. And we also now have casino betting. So our view is it's out there, it's going to happen, it's happening mostly on the black market now. It would be better to legalize it, tax it, regulate it, make it safe, make the systems reliable, protect the consumer with consumer protection features, and then direct the Gaming Commission to regulate it in a way that's consistent with those principles that the legislature would lay down.
Yeah, and you mentioned the consumer protections because the Attorney General in Massachusetts, Attorney General Maura Healey, did produce some consumer protection regulations,
Right.
even ahead of the Online Commission
Right.
taking a look at this, that folks in the daily fantasy world are complying with.
Right.
At least that's
And they're a big step in the right
understanding.
direction. I think she did a good job in coming up with consumer protection regs, but there are a whole host of other issues. Like, for example, we don't have any kind of registration, licensing, background check qualifications for people who run these gambling sites. In the casinos, you have to go through serious background checks before you can be involved in these. So theoretically, bad people could be involved, or bad money, or foreign money, or what have you, could be involved. So things like that, things like checking the hardware and software systems to make sure that the money is secure. Those are things that aren't covered in her consumer protection regs and could be covered if the legislature were to make it legal and direct us to look at all these other kinds of concerns.
Well, it's certainly something that I know we'll be taking a look at, and hopefully, I think, taking a cautious approach as we move forward. And as you point out, I think the Commission on Online Gaming did make some specific recommendations to the
Right.
legislature in this field. So I think this is yet to happen. But from where you sit as the chairman of the Gaming Commission, it's really important to know that your views as far as how we should be approaching
Right.
this new frontier.
And it's not just my views as the commission, as the chair, because we have a 5-member commission, and we can't express any opinions that isn't supported by the whole commission.
Right.
So these things that I'm saying now about where we think we ought to go and what's important relative to online sports comes from the full commission.
Let me switch gears just quickly and move on to this emerging world of eSports, a related but unique form of online gaming and video game players. For those in the listening audience, I can confess that I had no idea what eSports were before I began work on
Right.
the Online
Right.
Gaming Commission.
You were not alone in that.
And these are essentially what would consider video games played sometimes back in someone's bedroom or basement when they'd be playing with these. But now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right.
And we found that there are opportunities perhaps in this. We've heard of local leaders like Robert Kraft who are already investing in the esports industry with teams in Massachusetts. And maybe this is an opportunity for Massachusetts, but what esports activities, are already happening here that you think we should be focusing on?
Well, having esports by itself, where you put a team of players against another team of players in some of these big war games, for example, and compete to see who wins, that's fine. People can do that. It's legal. There's
Yep.
no issue about that. And there are these contests. There have been a number of events where professional game players have come in and played against other teams. And as you say, I think the Kraft family has invested in a team. They're trying to start a league of game players.
And I think there was an event at TD Garden.
Yeah, exactly, right.
this
I mean,
past year.
thousands of people watch this. It blows my mind. But
Right.
more people have watched the esports internationally than watch the NBA finals. You know, it's really big in all over the world, in many places in the world. But gambling on it is not legal. And like so many other activities, like other sports, I mean, if you consider esports a sport, people bet on football, baseball, basketball, they're going to bet on esports, and they do, and there are all kinds of elaborate ways that you can bet on internal things going on in the game. It's a big business, and it's a growing business, and the Gaming Commission feels about esports as we do about the other online. It's happening, it's going to happen, it's better that it be formally legalized, that it be formally regulated, that it may be formally safe, that we know who's doing it, we know who's behind it, and we tax it and take a little bit of their money in exchange for making it legal. That hasn't happened yet, as you know, but I wouldn't be surprised that in due time that the legislature will take it up and may consider making it legal.
And it's a new frontier. It's
totally
this
new
whole
frontier.
area is changing.
And gambling, new forms of gambling because of the internet. You can come up with a new game and deploy a new game in weeks.
Yeah.
And a new thing, a new way to bet, a new thing to bet on. So it's a crazy, as you say, it's new and crazy and proliferating world out there.
Right. And that's why we need folks taking a good look at this.
Yeah.
In our last couple of minutes, let me ask you if you can give us an update on Plainridge and what's happening down there. I know, that was our first open facility having to do with slots.
Right.
How do you think it's going?
It seems to be going great. They've got 550 full-time jobs. Half of them are people who were either unemployed or underemployed at the time. So we were able to address the people the legislature wanted us to address, to give opportunities to people who didn't have adequate jobs. It's generated, since it's been open in 2 years, something like $180 million that's gone to local aid to cities and towns in Massachusetts. That's a huge amount of money. Each year, about $1 billion goes from the state to cities and towns. So this one facility is generating close to 10%, 7, 8, 10, 9% each year of that total amount of local aid. They have supported the harness racing business. As you know, there's a harness racing track. Harness are the trotters, not the thoroughbreds, but the people behind a silky, behind a little, not wagon, but little machine.
I call it a cart, but
Cart,
that's probably
all right.
not
It's
right.
probably not, but we'll take it, a cart. That has grown tremendously. They've gone from about 60 racing days to 125 racing days. They have attracted many more horses, bigger purses, more betting, more revenue to the Commonwealth as a result. The people of Plainville seem to be and the surrounding communities also, Attleboro, North Attleboro, and others seem to be very satisfied. There don't seem to be any significant negative consequences. There's traffic around the facility, which is commensurate with what there would be if you put in a Walmart or something. Mm-hmm. But there don't seem to be any significant changes in crime rates.
And those were some of the things that people
were most worried about.
Beginning.
Right. So again, knock on wood, so far it looks like it's doing what you and the legislature and Governor Patrick wanted when this bill was signed.
And just quickly, I want to remind folks, because you may have forgotten over the years, but the money generated, whether it's Plainridge or certainly when the casino's open, is money that has already been allocated or dedicated to certain things in Massachusetts. In other words, it doesn't just go into the general fund to be used as folks see fit, but things like education and cultural, I mean, to name a few. There's a specific formula where these monies are going to go to.
The money that comes from the slots parlor from Plainridge goes 90% or 80% to local aid, cities and towns, and 20% to the Racehorse Development Fund to support purses for the horses in the racetracks. But the money from the casinos, the Springfield and Everett, as you say, goes to about 12 different places: higher ed, K-12 ed, economic development, community mitigation, responsible gaming, and research, a whole host of the Mass Cultural Council, a whole host of good causes.
And that was the intent from the beginning.
Right.
And you know, people have been patiently waiting to see what happens with this new law. We see it now. It's unfolding right before our eyes. Very happy to hear it's going according to expectations and even ahead of schedule for some of these projects. So, you know, we're very lucky. I want to thank you, Chairman Crosby, for joining me here today.
My pleasure.
You know, these topics are topics that people have an interest in, and we can't hear from anyone more knowledgeable than you. I also want to thank our viewers, and let me restate that thing that I've said here many times. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions, whether it's about this episode or anything in the district. I can be reached at my website, EileenDonahue.org, or via phone at my office, 617-722-1630, and of course email, eileen.donahue@masenate.gov. So thank you for joining us. Thank you.
My
and
pleasure.
I hope to see you at our next episode of Beacon Hill Buzz.